My neighbor thought cutting down my late grandmother's tree while I was away was a genius power move. He stood there smirking in his designer sunglasses like he had just won some invisible war over a few extra feet of backyard. But what he didn't know was that his little stunt was about to cost him everything he had built. This is the story of how one greedy decision turned his dream garage into a six-figure nightmare and taught me that sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't loud, it's quiet, it's legal, and it comes with a court order. Let me take you back to the beginning so you understand why that oak tree meant everything to me. My name is Emily Harper, and I've lived in this quiet suburban neighborhood in upstate New York for most of my adult life. The house was my grandmother's. She raised me after my parents passed away when I was 12. That woman was my whole world. Every summer she would sit me under that massive oak tree in the backyard and tell me stories about her childhood on a farm in Vermont. She planted that tree herself the year my mom was born, 100 years of roots deep in our family soil. Its branches shaded birthday parties and first kisses and quiet evenings where I could still feel her presence even after she was gone. I promised her I would protect it. When I inherited the house 5 years ago, I poured my heart into keeping everything just as she left it. Fresh paint on the shutters, her rose garden thriving along the fence, and that tree standing tall like a guardian over all of it. Life was good. I worked as a project manager for a tech firm, which meant occasional business trips, but I loved coming home to that backyard. It was my sanctuary. Then the Millers moved in next door. Mark Miller was the kind of guy who introduced himself by telling you how much his last house sold for. His wife Vanessa had a permanent scowl like the world owed her something better than everyone else's. They knocked down the modest ranch that used to sit there and started building what they called their forever home, marble countertops, a three-car garage that looked more like a luxury showroom, and an attitude that screamed they were above the rules. The trouble started almost immediately. Mark came over one Saturday morning while I was watering the roses. He didn't even say hello. He just pointed at my oak tree and said, "That thing is coming down. It's blocking the light for the garage I'm putting up. I'll pay for the removal. Let's get it done this week." I stared at him in disbelief. The tree was nowhere near his property line. I had lived here long enough to know every inch of my yard. I told him politely but firmly that the tree was staying. It was sentimental. It was family. He laughed like I had told a joke. Sentimental? It's a tree, lady. Grow up. This is progress. From then on, it was constant pressure. Notes left on my door. Passive-aggressive comments over the fence about how my weed was ruining his property value. Vanessa even tried to befriend me at first, pretending to be neighborly until she realized I wasn't budging. They filed some complaint with the town about the tree being a hazard, but the inspector took one look at it and laughed. Healthy as could be, perfect structure, no issues. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. I had a week-long business trip scheduled to Chicago for a big client presentation. I asked my friend Sarah to check on the house while I was gone, water the plants, grab the mail, normal stuff. The night before I left, I stood under that oak tree and ran my hand over its rough bark. I whispered to it like a fool, "I'll be back soon, old friend. Keep standing tall for me." The trip went well. I closed the deal and felt that familiar pull to get home. But when Sarah called me the day before my flight, her voice was shaking. "Emily, you need to get back here. Something happened with the tree." I didn't sleep on the red-eye flight. My mind raced through every possibility. Storm damage, disease. I prayed it wasn't anything serious. When the Uber dropped me off at the curb, I already knew. The backyard looked wrong, empty, naked. That beautiful canopy that had shaded my life for decades was gone. Just an ugly stump and sawdust scattered everywhere, like confetti from a nightmare. Mark was standing on his side of the fence with a crew of workers hauling away branches. He saw me and actually smirked. "Hey neighbor, figured I'd help you out while you were gone. Looks better already, right? More light for everyone?" I felt like someone had punched me in the chest. Tears burned in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall in front of him. This wasn't just a tree. This was my grandmother's legacy. Her hands had planted it. Her stories lived in its shade, and this entitled man had it destroyed while I was 3 states away. I didn't scream. I didn't cry on his lawn. I simply said, "You had no right," and walked inside. The house felt different already, quieter in a way that hurt. I sat at my kitchen table staring at the backyard for hours. The anger came in waves, but underneath it was something colder, determination. I called my friend, who is a real estate attorney, the next morning. She listened to the whole story and said the words I needed to hear. This might be more than just a tree issue, Emily. Let's do this properly. That's when I hired the professional land surveyor. I figured if nothing else, I could document the damage for small claims or something. Mark had already started bragging to other neighbors about how he took care of the problem. He even waved at me once while his construction crew poured concrete for his oversized garage extension. The man was building right up against the line like he owned the world. The surveyor arrived on a crisp Tuesday morning. He had all the fancy equipment: GPS, old deeds, historical records. I made coffee and watched him work for hours. He kept frowning at his tablet and double-checking measurements. Finally, he walked over to me with a serious look. Emily, I think you're going to want to sit down. What he showed me changed everything. Mark hadn't just cut down my tree. In his rush to expand his garage, he had ignored proper setbacks. His new construction, the luxury extension that added a home gym, entertainment room, and that ridiculous garage, was built partly on my property, almost 12 feet of it, the foundation, the walls, the roofline, all encroaching on land that had been in my family for generations. I stared at the survey map in disbelief. The red lines were unmistakable. He thought he had won by removing an obstacle. Instead, he had built his dream addition on stolen ground. My attorney was thrilled when I sent her the report. This is textbook timber trespass and encroachment. We have him, Emily, not just for the tree, but for the entire illegal build. We filed the lawsuit quietly, no screaming matches, no public drama, just cold hard facts and certified documents. Mark found out when the sheriff delivered the papers to his door. I watched from my window as he stormed around his yard yelling into his phone. Vanessa looked like she had swallowed a lemon. He tried to fight it at first, hired his own lawyer, claimed it was an honest mistake, offered to pay for the tree, which was laughable. 100-year-old oak isn't something you replace with a check, but the evidence was ironclad. The survey, photos of the tree before and after, construction records showing he started building before even getting proper permits cleared for the boundary. The court date came faster than I expected. I sat in that courtroom, wearing the same black dress I wore to my grandmother's funeral. Mark avoided my eyes the entire time. His attorney tried every angle, but the judge wasn't having it. This wasn't some gray area. It was clear property theft and willful destruction. The ruling was better than I could have dreamed. Mark was ordered to remove the entire encroaching structure at his own expense, not just the garage portion, the whole extension. And because of the timber trespass laws in New York, he owed me triple damages for the tree. That ancient oak was valued at over $80,000 once the arborist expert testified about its age, health, and historical significance. But the best part was the daily fine, $1,000 per day until the demolition was complete and the land restored. No extensions, no appeals dragging it out. The judge had seen too many bullies like Mark, and she wasn't playing games. Mark tried one last desperate move. He showed up at my door one evening looking smaller than I had ever seen him. No smirk this time, just desperation. Look, Emily, we can work something out. I'll pay you cash. Name your price. This is going to bankrupt me. I looked at him for a long moment, the man who had laughed while destroying something irreplaceable. You should have thought about that before you touched my grandmother's tree. I closed the door gently. The demolition started 3 weeks later. I stood on my back porch with a cup of coffee and watched as heavy machinery tore into his brand new construction. Workers in hard hats methodically dismantled what had cost him hundreds of thousands. The sound of jackhammers and saws filled the air, but to me it sounded like justice. Mark stood on his remaining lawn looking completely broken, tears on his face. Vanessa wouldn't even come outside. Neighbors who had stayed quiet through all the bullying started whispering. Some even came over to tell me they were glad someone finally stood up to him. The story spread through our little community like wildfire. The entitled couple who thought they could steamroll everyone learned the hard way that property lines matter. It took almost 2 months for the site to be fully cleared and restored. I used part of the settlement money to plant a new sapling near the old stump. It won't be the same for a long time, but it's a start, a symbol of resilience. Mark and Vanessa ended up selling the house at a loss. They moved out of state apparently. Last I heard, they were living in a much smaller place, and Mark was still paying off the legal and demolition bills. Looking back, I never set out to destroy anyone's home. I just wanted to protect what was mine. That tree wasn't just wood and leaves, it was memories, it was love, it was the last piece of my grandmother I could hold on to. Mark chose greed over basic human decency, and the law reminded him that actions have consequences. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even, it's about standing firm and letting the truth do the heavy lifting. Did Mark get exactly what he deserved? Or was forcing the full demolition too extreme? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story and want more tales of karma finding its way to entitled neighbors, hit that like button and subscribe. Turn on notifications so you never miss when justice gets served. Thanks for listening to my story, and remember, protect what matters to you, the trees, the memories, the boundaries, because some things are worth fighting for. See you in the next one.